faith, firearms, freedom. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio. I am your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode 31, brought to you by Cook's Holsters. American-made custom Kydex holsters with a lifetime warranty and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Check out cooksholsters.com. All right, so I said last week I didn't care about the Olympics. I lied. I have a confession to make. I've been watching some of it. I can't help but be inspired by the American athletes and their drive, their determination, and their patriotism. And I know that's driving liberals nuts, watching all of these athletes with their hands over their hearts, watching as their flags are raised and hearing the national anthem, tears rolling down their face and big smiles on their faces. All of these amazing athletes that I've seen so far have been a class act. Well, except for Hope Solo, who's the liberal media wanted Michael Phelps to give up his honor of carrying the flag into the opening ceremony to some Muslim chick so they could make a political statement out of it. Michael Phelps is amazing and has proven himself to be the greatest swimmer of all time. He's gone on to win just a pile of additional medals in what is likely his final Olympics. And the Muslim chick, well, she's got no medals of any kind, and got a bunch of media attention because she wears a hijab, despite the fact that nobody said she couldn't. Boy, talk about a story of perseverance. And she got knocked out of the fencing competition early and stomped off in tears, so there's that. But Olympics isn't supposed to be about politics, or it shouldn't be. We've seen world politics creep into this. Several Muslim countries have beclowned themselves, showing their true anti-Semitic colors. An Egyptian judo competitor, lost to an Israeli and then refused to shake his hand afterwards. We talked about last week the Lebanese team blocking the Israelis from boarding their bus. There was a Saudi competitor. I don't remember the sport. I'll have to look it up. Doesn't matter. He forfeited a match to avoid having to compete against an Israeli in the next round. Can you imagine that? I mean, you've worked your entire life to represent your country at the Olympics, and then you bow out rather than compete against a Jew. 12th century savages at the modern Olympic Games. It's just pathetic. Anyway, the American shooters have been outstanding, even though it's been almost impossible to find them on television. They're not in prime time, so if you didn't watch them streaming or if you couldn't be, home from work, you're just SOL. But go online. There's bound to be a way to watch it after the fact. Jenny Thrasher, of course, we mentioned last week. She won the first gold of the games, 19-year-old, amazing. And that, of course, brought out the liberal hate. Some actor named Will Wheaton. Does anybody know who that is? I have no idea who that is. Piers Morgan, of course, who is Mr. Irrelevant. They went on to tweet about how ironic it was that the U.S.'s first medal should be for shooting. Corey Cogdill-Unrain won bronze, and of course the feminists got all bent out of shape when a news headline read, something like, "Wife of Bears linebacker wins bronze in Rio." Well, I guess I'm a feminist too, though, because that bothered me a little bit. She does have a name, and she did overcome difficult odds to get where she was, and she won the medal. And she had been competing and was successful prior to her marrying the Bears linebacker. The ageless Kim Rhodey at age 37, who no sponsor wants to touch, apparently. While we're busy talking about the Muslim chick in the hijab, Kim Rhodey at age 37 did what no Olympian, male or female, has ever done in the Summer Games. She won a bronze medal in skeet, and that makes it 6 straight Olympics with a medal. Amazing. Anyway, I got to tell you, watching those athletes' faces as they take the medal stand with their hands on their hearts, watching the Stars and Stripes raised and the Star-Spangled Banner playing, it really gets to you. Congratulations to all the Olympians, to all the U.S. Olympic team and the medal winners. You're really making us proud. So what did I do this week related to guns? Not much. Both my son and my wife had bouts of that 48-hour stomach bug, so I've been on biohazard duty most of the week, praying that I'm not going to be the next one to get it and trying to keep my daughter busy and away from them so she doesn't get it. I did manage to get in some dry fire time, though not as much as I would have liked, and did some reloading for the first time in over a month. I got 600 or 700 pieces of brass deprimed and cleaned and ready to go, and I pressed out about 500 rounds of ammo. I'm hoping to have a nice stockpile for next month, hoping everything gets back to normal here next week so I can start bearing down on my training and prep for the Nationals and for the battle in Benton in September. On the IDPA front, I'm holding in my hand a copy of the official publication of the International Defensive Pistol Association called the Tactical Journal. This is the newest edition that just came out. This is the fall 2016 edition, volume 20, issue number 3. And if you turn, there's a nice little write-up on page 28 of the 2016 CompTech Republic of Texas State Championship. And if you turn to the winners, the trophy room section of the magazine, which they have every month, photos from the awards ceremonies of the various major matches. And on page 41, there's a familiar face. It's Sergeant Bill, accepting his high law enforcement trophy at the Republic of Texas Championship. Unfortunately, he's listed as James Jim O. O'Flaherty. It must be his super secret ninja name. If you don't get the Tactical Journal, if you're not a member of IDPA, check out the Facebook page and I'll post that. It's awesome. And today on the show, Mia is up first. She'll be talking about the Olympics, the Olympic athletes' stories of faith and giving thanks to God for his blessings and how that applies to our lives. Aaron Israel has tips for minimizing administrative handling of your firearm. Sergeant Bill will be talking about taking training classes. And speaking of which, Armed Lutheran Radio and Mission 160 Tactical are hosting Aaron Israel, who is going to be teaching his fundamentals of defensive focus shooting class, the one-day class. And that's going to be at Mission 160 Tactical in Whitewright, Texas. Check out the show notes for a link for more information about the class. It's $200 for the one-day class, and if you use the promo code Lutheran, you get a 20% discount off the tuition for the class. We'll be talking a little bit about the election, another shameless attempt to try and convince people that we really do have a choice in this election. We'll talk about an interesting questionnaire. I was going to bring it up last week, but did not have time to fit it into the show. An interesting questionnaire that police chiefs have sent to both candidates, and what that questionnaire says about what cops are really concerned about in this country. It's not what you'd think it is if you'd watched the DNC convention in Philadelphia. And speaking of Olympic shooting, our guest gun reviewer, Jon Braaten, is back. He's got a review of an over-under shotgun from TriStar, the Upland Hunter Silver. All that is straight ahead right here on Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hi, I'm Corey Cogdell, two-time Olympic shooter and NRA member. It's because of the NRA that I'm able to train and compete at the highest level for my country. Join me and millions of others by getting your NRA membership today.
Time now for Mia's Motivations on Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hi, everybody. I have been sharing a ton about the Olympics on my personal website because they're very fun to pay attention to, and actually a lot more happy than paying attention to the politics and happenings in the United States right now. It's nice to be able to step back a moment and virtually escape with Team USA and join them in Brazil for their epic experiences. I have cheered and jeered and jumped up and down and in some instances nearly cried for these athletes. Did you see Mara Abbott's heart-wrenching finish in the last 100 meters of the Olympic cycling? Oh, it was definitely intense, and I think she's going to need some therapy to help survive the nightmares that she might have with shoulda, coulda, and woulda for the rest of her life. On another note, it was super exciting to hear that Jenny Thrasher, a 19-year-old shooter, won the first gold medal of the Olympic Games. How huge is that? Not just the first gold, but the first is a shooting event and a woman and a 19-year-old. Isn't she incredible? The entire road to Olympics is similar to the road to the rest of our lives, and in that, you have to think of these ups and downs and how do these athletes survive through that. One that comes to mind that I follow closely is Corey Cogdell, and we follow shotgun sports a lot in my family because my daughter also shoots on a local level. But Corey Cogdell, won a bronze medal, and she did that, and it's so incredible to see and very exciting. What a reward, because she actually had some struggles on the way to get to Rio, and more than just dealing with competition. Just before the games, she was having to deal with the challenge of facing her teammates filing a complaint against her and her coaches. Their hopes were getting Cogdell removed from the Olympic team so that they could elevate their own status into the Olympic trials. Or possibly they were trying to bring something to light. Either way, I'm not one to judge. I don't know right or wrong because I haven't been put on this earth to be the judge. But she dealt with that when the outcome was that she was innocent, and she did attend the Olympics, as we know. But after Corey won the bronze, what really impressed me, and another gymnast did the same thing, after they competed, they were grateful, and even one gymnastics person that didn't win a medal, they actually gave thanks to God. They said they had to look up and give thanks to God or Jesus because really all their strength lies in Him. And that's something that I feel I can talk freely about here on the Armed Lutheran, since I also am an Armed Lutheran. But we do need to remember that, even if we're not competitors, is that we have to first and foremost thank God for the blessings and then continue on our way. And it's something that I hope will help you not only in your competitions in life, but in all aspects. Give thanks and look up, and really, it's outstanding to see these Olympic competitors and, like I said, shotgun shooters, air rifle shooters, and then other events. They are giving thanks and looking up, and they will survive and do well whether they won medals or not, and they can do that by looking to God. So that's my tip for the day. You'll have a great life if you can manage to do that, and next week I'll be back and hopefully I have a nice shooting tip for you. Have a good one. Bye.
If you collect swords or knives, you owe it to yourself to check out AtlantaCutlery.com. Founded back in 1971 as a mail-order catalog company, they offer an extensive range of unique knives, military swords and sabers, self-defense tools, licensed movie and TV collectibles, antique kukris, military surplus, and battle-worthy edged weapons that you would be proud to carry into battle if you could go back in time. Visit them today, www.atlantacutlery.com. And welcome back. It's time now for a self-defense tip from Aaron Israel of Fundamental Defense.
Hey folks, this is Aaron Israel with Fundamental Defense here with your personal defense tip of the week. This week I want to talk to you about minimizing the administrative handling of your firearm in order to avoid the possibility for a negligent discharge. Negligent discharges on modern handguns are caused by a negligent action that inadvertently actuates the firing mechanism, causing a round to be fired. Firearms do not just go off on their own in any but extreme circumstances involving extreme disrepair or neglect or something like that on older type guns. If you take care of your gun like you're supposed to, like I'm sure all you guys do, they don't just go off. You can drop them, you can kick them across the ground, and unless something gets in there and actuates that firing mechanism, the gun's not going to go bang. So when someone claims that the firearm just went off, like I was cleaning my gun and it went off, it usually means that they're trying to protect their ego because they're embarrassed about having the negligent discharge. But it didn't just go off on its own. They did something stupid to cause it to go off. That's why it's called a negligent discharge. So the fact that you're doing something that you ought not to be doing is what causes the gun to fire when you don't intend for it to do so. In my experience, it's usually not novice gun owners who experience negligent discharges. Novice gun owners usually have a heightened level of respect and sometimes even a level of fear in regard to handling their firearm when it's loaded, especially, simply due to their limited experience with it. This causes them to be extra tentative and cautious in most cases when they're handling their firearm. Usually it's the experienced people, or people who think they're experienced, who have negligent discharges. This phenomenon can be summed up in one word: complacency. When the gun becomes such an ingrained part of your lifestyle that you forget about the lethal potential that it possesses, you'll start to treat it like other inanimate objects in your life. You don't worry about taking your cell phone or keys out of your pocket and setting them down places because they're not dangerous and pose no risk to anyone if mishandled. For a lot of folks in the gun culture who think they're experienced, a gun can have a tendency to become a mere accessory if we aren't careful and disciplined and vigilant about looking at that gun for what it is. It's usually when that complacent attitude appears and unconscious thought, as it may be, becomes a reality that bad things like negligent discharges happen. In order to avoid this complacent attitude and minimize the opportunity for human nature to take over, we should limit our administrative handling of our firearms. What I mean by administrative handling is any handling of your firearm that's not for a specific purpose. So once the gun goes into your holster for the day, it should stay in your holster until it comes out for a specific reason. And that specific reason is going to be limited to: I'm practicing with it on the range, I'm putting it into my quick access safe for some reason, right? If I can't put my holster in there, which if you can fit the holster in there with the gun, then that's going to be the best way to stage it. And the other reason would be I'm responding to a worst case scenario and I need to shoot somebody, so obviously that's a good reason to get the gun out of the holster. Or I'm taking it out to do some specific task, like I'm going to do dry fire with my gun or I'm going to clean it, in which case I'm going to verify that it's clear. As soon as I take it out of the holster, I'm going to take the magazine out of the mag well, I'm going to rack the slide, I'm going to verify the chamber's clear, I'm going to have somebody else verify the chamber is clear if they're in the room with me, and then I'm going to do my administrative handling such as dry fire or cleaning the gun or whatever. But I'm not going to constantly be messing with my gun, taking it in and out of the holster for no reason. So if you need to remove your firearm for some reason before moving into like a non-permissive environment, maybe you got to leave your gun in your car, secure it in there because you can't take it into your workplace, remove the entire holster and secure it in whatever you're securing it in while it's still in the holster. It's a bad idea to constantly unholster and reholster your gun throughout the day. Every time you remove the firearm from the holster in an administrative context, you're giving yourself an opportunity to make a mistake. This is especially true if you're doing it in a vehicle, a bathroom stall, or some random place that isn't where you normally secure or stage your firearms. This is why we hear stories about people shooting themselves when they're securing their firearm in their vehicle or when they're in the bathroom at the restaurant or whatever. You need to have a plan for what you're going to do with your firearm if you have to go potty, right? If you have to take your firearm off, then you probably need a different method of carry, or you just need to not use public restrooms if your method of carry doesn't allow you to get your business taken care of while you got your gun still in the holster. So if you're doing any of these administrative tasks, you're upping the chances that you're going to have a negligent discharge. You got to keep in mind the big picture rule that a firearm is a weapon that you're in control of, and if it's used negligently, meaning you do something stupid with it, or maliciously, meaning you intend to do harm with it, can kill or seriously injure you or someone else. If you remember that fact, then you're going to minimize the amount of time that you handle that gun administratively, and you're going to keep from treating it like other inanimate objects in your life, like your keys or your cell phone or whatever. Having a firearm on your person with you 24/7, like a lot of us do, requires you a high level of discipline. But discipline is demanded of the responsible gun owner, and we don't have the opportunity to just be messing with our guns all the time, or we're going to have the high likelihood of having negligent discharge. So minimize the administrative handling of your firearm. Only take it out for specific purposes, and those purposes are going to be limited to shooting on the range, or in a worst case scenario, or going to clean it or do dry fire, in which case you're going to clear it, verify it's clear, and then do whatever handling that you have to do your firearm with it unloaded. So if you minimize the administrative handling, you're lowering the chances of a negligent discharge, and that's going to be the best thing for you. That's your personal defense tip of the week. Thanks for tuning in.
Pistols, prayer, and potluck. You're listening to Armed Lutheran Radio.
If you try to purchase a gun for someone who can't, you can buy yourself 10 years in jail. If a friend or relative asks you to lie to a federally licensed firearms retailer so you can buy a gun for him, don't do it. It's not worth 10 years in jail. Whatever you do, don't lie for the other guy.
This message is brought to you as a public service by the NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation.
Yeah, I should never have gotten into Twitter. Twitter's just a sewer.
Yeah.
Bad temptation to violate the 8th commandment repeatedly.
You don't have to jump into a sewer to know it's filthy.
Welcome back to Armed Lutheran Radio. If you watched the dumpster fire that was the Democrat National Convention in Philadelphia, or if you've paid any attention to any of the political speeches that have followed talking about crime, and particularly with regards to guns and police, you've heard probably quite a bit about how police are outgunned and we really need to do something about this, and what a huge concern this is. At the DNC convention, we heard from the former police commissioner of Philadelphia, who was talking about how outgunned police officers are and what a major concern this is. So with that in mind, I found this article in the Washington Post rather interesting. America's police chiefs have 10 pointed questions for candidates Trump and Clinton. This is from Tom Jackman, dated August 4th. The two leading presidential candidates have not discussed crime and justice issues in much detail so far. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have declared their support for law enforcement, but have been short on specifics. The Republican platform decries over-criminalization of federal law and calls for a commission to weed out old crimes, and also lauds the use of mandatory minimum sentencing as an important tool. The Democrat platform calls for a reduction in gun violence by expanding background checks, revoking the legal immunity of gun makers and sellers, and allowing the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to study gun violence as a public health issue, a task Congress currently does not allow it to perform. So you notice the difference in the focuses of the two. The Republican platform focuses on prosecuting crime and punishing criminals, and the Democratic platform focuses on gun control. Okay? So there's an obvious difference between the approaches of the two parties. So the nation's police chiefs, back to the article, have come up with a questionnaire for the candidates. The International Association of Police Chiefs, which is composed of 27,000 members in all 50 states, sent 10 questions, one of them with multiple branches for Trump and Clinton, to answer by August 15th. So here are the 10 questions, and I was really interested to see what these questions were, especially given what we heard in the conventions with regards to police and crime and gun control. And here are the questions. And you can kind of get an idea of what it is that the police chiefs are concerned about based on these 10 questions. Now, compare these 10 questions. I'll read to you in just a moment. Compare the 10 questions with the the platforms of the two parties. Here are the questions. Question number 1. What is the number one priority in the area of law enforcement/criminal justice that you hope to accomplish if elected? Number 2, what are your plans to lower crime? What will the role of state and local law enforcement be in that effort? 3, what are your foreign policy priorities as they relate to criminal justice or transnational crime issues? 4, the federal government is an important partner to state and local law enforcement agencies. What, if anything, would you do differently from the current administration? That's probably is a little bit of concern about how the federal government is meddling in local law enforcement to the degree that it currently does. Number 5, in some areas there exist tensions between law enforcement and communities, particularly in regards to legitimacy and procedural justice. This is a question aimed directly at the Obama administration and its constant delegitimizing of police authority by suggesting that they are acting irresponsibly. They're breaking their bond, the bond between the police and the community. They're acting in ways that are racist. How would you work to repair and strengthen community police relations? You got to remember, these relations are strained and have been since Skip Gates was arrested breaking into his own house, and the president came out and called the police officer who arrested him stupid. Okay, it's gone downhill from there. So how would the new president, whichever one gets elected, how would you work to fix things from where they are now? Number 6, given the demands of the job and the decreasing state and local budgets, what type of assistance and resources do you believe the federal government should provide to ensure that law enforcement is able to do its job effectively and efficiently? In other words, how much money are you going to give us? Number 8, what are your views on the following issues confronting law enforcement, and what solutions do you plan to provide? Please provide a response for each issue listed. A, gang/drug-related violent crime. B, firearms-related violence. C, homegrown violent extremism. D, barriers to law enforcement investigations such as encryption. E, states who have already legalized or plan to legalize marijuana, medical or recreational. F, increase in opioid and heroin use. G, the backlog in DNA evidence processing. H, the collection of police data. Now, notice here that in this question, only one of the 8 or sub-issues in this question relates to firearms-related violence. Only one. So we're only, out of 8 questions, we're only talking about gun violence in part of one of 8 questions. It's not even one of the main points for law enforcement. Number 9, the lack of adequate mental health services have resulted in a large portion of law enforcement's calls for service involving individuals with mental illness. What steps will you take to alleviate law enforcement's role in mental health intervention? And number 10, as president, how would you respond to an incident involving law enforcement, such as a police-involved shooting or use of force incident that has gained national attention? That's a huge question. In other words, are you going to do what President Obama has done and jump the gun and blame police right off the bat when you don't know anything about it? That's been the modus operandi for the last 8 years. So the question to the potentially new president is, what are you going to do? Are you going to wait for the facts, or are you going to jump the gun and make assumptions and continue to create or foster this current situation where we have this distrust between the community and police? What's notable to me is there's not a single mention about high-powered weapons. There's not a single mention about streets awash in guns or the easy availability of guns. Not a single mention about all these things that you heard the Democrat National Convention, using a scare tactic to try and freak people out about. You heard all these scare tactics at the convention, trying to convince you that police are outgunned every day. It's something we've got to do. We've got to change things. We've got to do something about it. We've got to ban assault rifles. We need background checks. There's not a single mention of those things here in these 10 questions from the chiefs of police. Not a single one. 1/8 of 1/10 of this questionnaire relates to firearms violence. A tiny fraction of the concerns of the police chiefs has to do with gun violence. Their biggest concerns are, what are you going to do as far as funding? How are you going to assist us? What are you going to do if the next time a law enforcement agency is involved in a use of force incident that gains national attention? Are you going to vilify us, or are you going to back us up? That's the big thing. I thought that was pretty interesting. Given what we heard at the conventions, these are the real concerns of police.
It's the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs. I'm Alan Gottlieb, founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. When someone says we don't need that kind of gun, remind them the Founding Fathers determined what rights our Constitution should protect. There's a world of difference between rights and needs. It is not the function of government to tell us what we need or what we don't. Certainly no one needs an assault rifle or a Saturday Night Special, or for that matter, no one needs a Corvette with a high-capacity horsepower engine capable of speeds to 150 miles per hour. But in the hands of honest, responsible individuals, we have the right of choice. We have the right to read books others don't like. We have the right to listen to any radio program we choose. We have the right to dress the way we want to. We also have the right to own firearms of our choice. So the next time someone tells you you don't need something, tell them it's the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs. Join the Second Amendment Foundation today so that this message and our Bill of Rights might live. Call 425-454-7012. That's 425-454-7012.
Welcome back to Armed Lutheran Radio. Time now for another Ballistic Minute with Sergeant Bill Silvia.
This is your Ballistic Minute with Sergeant Bill. Today's topic is going to be training classes. Training classes can include anything from pistol, shotgun, rifle, whatever it may be. Something you want to go to do to get more skills, more practice, and have fun. So first thing you got to identify is what's your goal. Are you doing it for self-defense? Are you doing it for competition? Are you doing it just for your pistol, for a rifle, for a shotgun? Is it a 3-gun camp? Whatever it may be, you need to figure out what kind of training class you want to go to. Are you a competition shooter and you're not worried about all that other good stuff? Then you want to go to a competition-only class, with somebody that's going to teach you competition skills. If you want to do a self-defense class, you're not going to want to learn from a competition teacher that may not care about you wanting to use your small Smith & Wesson shield in your appendix carry. He may not even allow it. So you need to know what your goal is as for what you are going to this training class for. Then you got to identify your travel concerns. Are you going to fly there? Are you going to drive? If you're going to fly, you've got to know how to pack your gear and either ship it there and or take it on a plane, which we could do a whole segment on that. If you're going to drive, how far is the drive? How much gas you're going to need? Do you know how to get there? Is your car ready to go, or are you having problems? It's things you got to look at. And then there's lodging. Is there someone nearby to stay? Is it expensive? How much are you willing to pay for that? And that comes to your costs. The costs are going to include everything, including the class, your traveling, your lodging, your food, even entertainment if you're there for multiple days and you want to hang out and do something afterwards, see a movie or something, your ammunition, there's going to be a lot of costs. You got to decide how much you want to spend for this training class. After you figured out your goal and your travel concerns and costs, you need to investigate your trainer. Whoever's going to be you're taking this class from, you need to check out his credentials. Check them out thoroughly. Find out where they've been, what they've done, what they're teaching. Usually they'll have maybe some clips on YouTube or something, or even if they don't, they're going to have a website where you can read reviews or contact someone and ask them, what they teach, what the class was like. Maybe you have some friends that have been to that class before. Ask them what it was like. So you'll have kind of an idea of what to expect, and you won't be surprised when you get there as much as you would if you didn't investigate them. But in checking out your trainer, you want to see if, hey, does this guy have any creds to say that this is something that he should be teaching? Or is this just some guy who went through some NRA classes and decided he wanted to be a firearms instructor? Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because there are lots of people that can teach things really, really well, and it doesn't mean that they were, a combat veteran or, been a firearms trainer with, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center or something like that. They don't have to have those credentials, but if they don't have those, you still want to find out what makes them a good instructor. So check them out. And to be prepared for your class, you also need to know your gun and equipment. Make sure that you know how to clean your gun, disassemble it, how it works, how your equipment works. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's adjusted. If you have holsters that have screws or parts on them, you want to make sure you Loctite them and they're all good to go, or maybe even have some tools to work on that stuff and bring them with you. You need to have your essentials when you go to this class. It's usually going to be out in the, pretty nice weather, so you need some sunblock, some bug spray, some water, and all your gear, to include as many magazines that you can have that work. And all your other gear, your leather gear or your holsters, or, even a backup gun if you need it. Make sure you've got all your ammo. Make sure it's all ready to go. But Mother Nature's not always our friend, so you got to make sure you have a raincoat and some wet weather gear, or maybe even some knee pads if it's a gravel range and you're doing something, tactical, self-defense oriented, and you might be down on the ground. It doesn't seem like a big deal until you go down to your knees, or you're in a prone position and you've done it 100 times in 8 hours. You're going to get a little beat up, sore, and or cut up. So make sure you have some gear and equipment, some medical tape and stuff that'll take care of you, like a little first aid kit for afterwards, or during, if you get a little cut up. Okay, so now you're at that training class. You want to take some notes. Bring a notebook. Write down things that they tell you, things that you learn. There's going to come times when they're teaching you something and you're going to have a break, or you're going to go load magazines, and you're going to go, oh, wow, this little deal he told me to do here to change my grip a little this, or to put this foot a little forward, changed everything so much. You need to write that stuff down, because it'll help you to practice what you've learned later on. You'll be able to read it later and remember it later and go, oh yeah, instructor so-and-so said make sure I do this with this, and that made me shoot much better. It controlled recoil a lot better, or whatever it may be. And above all, when you go to training classes, have an open mind and have fun. Try their techniques. They may not be the techniques that you learned. They may seem a little different, but try them out. You don't know whether you're going to like them or not until you've actually tried them and given them a fair shake. And even if you decide that, hey, the way so-and-so was saying to do this technique isn't really the way that I like to do it, well, you'll still have that learning experience, that training technique in your toolbox of techniques. So the bigger your toolbox is, the more stuff you have in it, the more well-rounded a shooter you're going to be. And like I said, just have fun. Don't go there with an attitude or anything like that. Just listen to what they have to say, give it a shot, have fun. This has been your Ballistic Minute with Sergeant Bill.
So you have your concealed carry permit or license to carry. Now what? Now you need a good holster. Not one of those cheap neoprene prophylactic holsters you can buy in the big box stores. You need a holster custom built for the firearm you intend to carry every day. Check out cooksholsters.com. Made in the USA, Cooks holsters are available in a wide range of colors and designs for inside the waistband or outside waistband carry. They carry a lifetime warranty against defects and a 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Visit www.cooksholsters.com and use the promo code ARMEDPODCAST and take 15% off everything in the store. You put in the time and effort to legally carry a firearm for personal protection. Protect your firearm with a custom holster from cooksholsters.com.
I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran Radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safer.
Guest reviewer Jon Braaten, who calls himself Johnny B, brings us a guest gun review. Jon is the reigning champion of the Armed Lutheran Gun Trivia Quiz back in episode 10. And if you would like to challenge Jon for the title and appear on the show answering tricky questions about gun and Lutheran trivia, send us an email to armedlutheranradio@gmail.com.
I love finding a firearm that mixes quality with budget pricing. The TriStar Upland Hunter Silver is one shotgun that exceeds the criteria. Made by Kroll out of Turkey, the over-under caught my eye at the Walmart counter of all places. The Silver is a special run for Walmart and is not the same as TriStar's Hunter or Setter models. Now may be an opportune time to pick one up as a gateway to the sport of the elites. As I spun the Lazy Susan display filled with guns with the same zeal as a contestant on The Price is Right, the beauty of the gun caught my eye. The price tag for $357 kept me in the gravitational pull of the gun counter until an associate arrived. If I were to close my eyes and be handed this gun, I would guess that it was a Browning. There is a certain feel to the finished walnut stock and glossy barrel that is reminiscent of a gun worth $700 more. On the receiver is a subtle stenciling colored in a different shade of gunmetal gray. Top marks for the appearance. The feel is natural to the shooter and has compact handling even though the barrel is 28 inches long. Fiber optic sights are standard and 5 total chokes are included. It will accept Beretta chokes, but I have yet to try them. Currently only 12 gauge is available, but I and many other people would jump at a 20 gauge offering. At 6 pounds, the gun can handle recoil well. However, I added a Pacmar decelerator recoil pad and shooting was smoother. It seemed that after I shot, the pad would slip to my right. Consider adding a more permanent pad or a pad with a longer sleeve if you decide to go that route. At my first trap shoot of the season, I often mistook my shotgun for somebody else's gun. It was a chameleon amongst the brand names. On my first round, I went 19 out of 25. It was one of my better starts as I am still new to the trap sport. However, from that trip it was evident to me that the accuracy is strong right out of the box. One common factor is that the gun seems to have tight tolerances. I had several rounds that did not have a pinstrike, and I diagnosed it that I was not closing the gun hard enough. I believe a full season of shooting should loosen it up nicely. Be on the lookout for the kryptonite of this gun. In every display model, it seems that the stiff safety is too close to the plate and rubs against it. One model had some gouges from customers testing the safety. Take note of the area before purchasing. I have light marks and am looking to sand down the underside of the button. The other issue is that the safety also acts as the barrel selector. Fast follow-up shots are slow and will require a novice to remove the gun from the shoulder to select the other tube. The switch must be placed on safe, moved to the left or right to select the barrel, and then taken off of safe to engage the target. This system works satisfactorily if you are trying to use it as a single shot. Another small inconvenience is the lack of ejector. Each shell needs to be manually removed, and this may not be a problem for reloaders or people who want to keep their shooting areas clean. Although the company does not offer a lifetime warranty, it seems like a trivial risk considering what you are buying. While it does have some downsides, I would still recommend the TriStar for the excellent handling and accuracy. the solid appearance, and the value for an over-under. So while everyone may be paying over for their exotic-sounding status symbol, you can be paying under for a great firearm.
Help support Armed Lutheran Radio. Visit www.patreon.com/armedlutheran and become a sponsor today.
So, the general consensus is now that Donald Trump is throwing away the election. Everyone thinks that his off-the-cuff comment about the Second Amendment, about Second Amendment people doing something to prevent Hillary from nominating liberal judges, was this dog whistle to suggest that gun owners might assassinate her. And while I'm not happy with his inartful use of the English language, it's to be expected when you don't write speeches, everything's done off the cuff. It's not good for any of us as gun owners. I'm certainly not happy about it, but I understand. I don't believe that he meant anything close to what is being suggested. Establishment Republicans are disavowing him. The media is all up in arms. Some are even suggesting, some Republicans, prominent Republicans, are suggesting they would prefer or maybe even will vote for Hillary. When the Republican Party establishment suggests that it would prefer someone as liberal, as vile and self-serving and corrupt as Hillary Clinton instead of their own nominee, I think it's time to end the Republican Party for good. Conservative voters who formed the Tea Party in response to President Obama's government overreach and massive spending were embraced by the GOP only so long as they could win their votes and gain a majority in both houses of Congress. Once they had their House majority, they said, well, there's not a whole lot we can do. We can't get anything done because we don't have the Senate. So we need your support in 2012 to give us the Senate. They put up another moderate squish to run against Obama, Mitt Romney. Now, while Mitt Romney's a fine person, personally, he was a terrible choice to run for president. And in a year when Obama and the Democrats could easily have been beaten by drawing clear, bright distinctions between the parties about what we stand for, Romney folded like a cheap suit. And it didn't help that the Ron Paul libertarians wouldn't vote for some rich banker type and basically stayed home. But I'm not blaming the loss on those people. Romney was still a bad candidate, and like McCain before him, he refused to go after Obama on his record, while Democrats basically called him everything but a white person. And despite the loss at the top of the ticket, the GOP still managed to gain control of the Senate. But after promising they would work to oppose Obama's agenda and roll back all of the stuff that he'd done, if only they had the Senate, what did they do? They turned against the Tea Party. They turned against conservatives, people like Ted Cruz. They continued to fund Obama's executive branch abuses. They worked to support their own version of amnesty for illegal aliens. Thank you, Marco Rubio. They backed Jeb Bush with a huge war chest and suggested that he could win the nomination for the presidency this year without the party's base. Well, that worked out well. That was money well spent. All of that gave rise to the candidacies of Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, and ultimately Donald Trump. And after a very ugly primary, we've still got conservatives and people in the Never Trump crowd who are happy to see Trump go down in flames and are perfectly okay with seeing Hillary win. If they think that stance will make voters excited to vote Republican in the future, they're smoking crack. What it will likely do is fracture the conservative and libertarian wings of the Republican Party in a way that hands Democrats the reins of power for years. Rush Limbaugh once remarked, he was talking about the establishment in the Republican Party, that they always seemed more comfortable in the minority. They were happy to be near the seat of power, to get a few seats on some committees, to be invited to Washington dinner parties. They really didn't care for people like you and me, the hoi polloi, the unwashed masses in flyover country. At this point, we're down to two choices, Hillary or Trump. Suggesting you're going to vote for nobody or that you'll write somebody else in, or that you'll vote for a third-party candidate. It's like when my daughter says, "I'm hungry. What do we have to eat?" when dinner comes around. I'll say, "Well, your mom made spaghetti. We're having spaghetti for dinner." "Well, I don't like spaghetti. What else do we have?" "Okay, I can make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich." So there's your choice. You could have spaghetti, or you could have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And she'll make a face, and she'll say, "But I don't want that. I want something else." "I'm sorry, dear. That's all we've got." Suggesting you're going to vote for somebody like Gary Johnson is like my daughter eating stale month-old crackers that we found in the back of the cupboard. Voting for nobody is like going to bed without dinner. My wife and myself, my son, we'll sit down at the table, we'll have a spaghetti dinner while my daughter complains that she can't have something else. It doesn't magically turn the spaghetti into chocolate chip cookies. And wishing we had a better choice isn't going to give us Ronald Reagan. It's just wishful thinking. There's never a perfect choice in politics. And saying, "Well, I can't vote for that person because my convictions, my principles, my religious beliefs prevent me from voting for that person." Look, we're not voting for Sunday school teacher. We're not voting for congregational president of the American church. We're voting for President of the United States. And the candidates happen to be imperfect people. And it just so happens that we're down to two of the most imperfect that we could possibly have chosen. But those are the choices we have. This election and the choice that's in front of us makes me physically sick. I've never felt like this going into an election. It's like choosing between the flu and the bubonic plague. You know one's going to be unpleasant, and if you don't manage the symptoms, it just might kill you. People die from the flu every year. But the other is a death sentence. And saying, "No, sir, I don't think I'll have either one of those, thank you," only means you're going to end up with the plague anyway. You know, I read this tweet the other day that really sums up the election pretty well. It sums up how I feel about it and the predicament that we're in. It said, and I'm going to have to paraphrase here because I don't have it in front of me, "The difference between Hillary and Trump is that Hillary is a terrible person who will definitely do terrible things to this country. Trump is a terrible person who may accidentally do good things." And that's pretty close to how it feels. So, thank you, sir. Where do I sign up for that case of the flu? I'll take it any day of the week. And that's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you to all of our contributors: Aaron Israel of Fundamental Defense, Sergeant Bill Silvia, better known as James O'Flaherty, Mia Anstine, and our special guest reviewer, Jon Braaten. And thank you to all of you for listening, downloading, and subscribing. This pro-gun, pro-gospel ministry is made possible by our great sponsor, Cook's Holsters, our advertisers, and contributions from fans like you. If you like what we're doing, I hope you'll give us some positive feedback on iTunes, leave us a rating or a review, send us some feedback by visiting the feedback page at the website, send us an email or a voice message, and I hope you'll consider becoming a patron of the show by visiting the website, click on Become a Patron in the menu, and make a donation. Or visit one of the show's sponsors like 199 Trust, Lucky Gunner, BattleBox, or Audible, whose ads appear on the website. Thank you again for joining us. Until next week, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.com. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @ArmedLutheran and like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/TheArmedLutheran. You can contact us by email at armedlutheranradio@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 855-54-ARMED. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio.